Here's a story you haven't heard yet. It's about the 3 years I spent working the graveyard shift as a night auditor at a mid-sized hotel in the city. If you've ever worked in hospitality, you know that the night shift isn't just quiet. It's heavy. It's that specific kind of silence where the air feels thick, and every creak of the floorboards sounds like a footstep. I used to think it was just my imagination playing tricks on me because of the isolation, but then I saw the footage. I saw something on the security monitors that I still can't wrap my head around, and honestly, I don't think I ever will. To understand how weird this got, you have to understand the setting. I was working in this beautiful, slightly older hotel. It had those high ceilings, heavy velvet curtains, and long, carpeted hallways that seemed to stretch on forever. My job was basically to sit in a small, glass-enclosed office in the lobby, run the end-of-day reports, handle late check-ins, and monitor the security feeds. Most nights were incredibly boring. I'd spend hours scrolling through my phone, watching the static-filled monitors of empty hallways and the deserted parking lot. It was peaceful, in a lonely sort of way. But there was one specific hallway, Hallway 4B, that always felt different. It was tucked away near the service elevator, and the lighting there was always a little dimmer than the rest of the building. I never went down there alone at night, and I always made sure the cameras covering that stretch were functioning perfectly. It started on a Tuesday, around 3:15 in the morning. That's the time of night when your brain starts to feel a little fuzzy, and the line between being awake and dreaming starts to blur. I was reviewing the footage from the previous hour, just doing my routine checks, when I noticed something odd on the monitor for the fourth-floor corridor. There was a flicker. It wasn't a technical glitch, or at least, it didn't look like one. It looked like a shadow passing quickly across the frame, but when I rewound the footage to see it again, there was nothing there. I figured it was just a digital artifact, a bit of interference from the old wiring in the building. I brushed it off and went back to my reports. But then, a few nights later, it happened again. This time, it wasn't just a flicker. I was watching the live feed of the fourth floor, and I saw a door at the very end of the hallway, room 412, slowly swing open. Now, room 412 was supposed to be vacant. I knew that because I had personally checked the system that afternoon, and the room was marked as out of service for maintenance. I sat there, frozen, watching that door. It didn't fly open, it moved with intention. It creaked open just a few inches, stayed there for a long minute, and then slowly, almost gracefully, clicked shut again. My heart started racing. I grabbed my heavy flashlight and my radio, thinking maybe a guest had wandered in or a staff member was playing a prank. I walked up there, my footsteps echoing loudly in the empty stairwell. When I reached the fourth floor, the hallway was dead silent. I walked over to room 412, my hand trembling slightly, and checked the handle. It was locked. I checked the maintenance log on my tablet. Everything was normal. There was no reason for that door to move. I went back down to the desk, feeling unsettled, and decided to pull the recorded footage from the exact moment I saw the door move. I wanted to see if I could catch a glimpse of a person, or maybe even a gust of wind from the AC vents. I sat there in the dim light of the lobby, rewinding and fast-forwarding. I finally found the clip. I watched the door. I watched it swing open. I watched it close. But as I watched the footage, I realized something that made the hair on my arms stand up. In the reflection of the polished brass number on the door, right as the door was closing, there was a shape. It wasn't a person. It was a silhouette, but it was wrong. It was too tall, too thin, and it lacked any discernible features. It looked like a smudge of darkness that had more substance than a shadow should have. And the worst part? The shape wasn't standing in the hallway. It was inside the room, and it seemed to be watching the door close from the darkness within. I didn't sleep that night. I spent the rest of my shift staring at that monitor, waiting for something else to happen. I felt like I was being watched, not just by something on the screen, but by something in the lobby with me. I kept thinking about that silhouette. It didn't move like a human. It didn't have the weight or the rhythm of a living thing. It was just there. The next night, I tried to convince myself I had imagined the reflection. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a lens flare, anything to keep my sanity intact. But the curiosity was eating me alive. I decided that I wasn't going to just watch the live feed. I was going to set up a secondary recording on my laptop, something more high-def, to see if I could get a clearer look at the fourth floor if it happened again. 3 nights after the door incident, it finally happened in full. It was exactly 3:15 a.m. I was sitting at the desk, my eyes glued to the laptop screen. The hallway on the fourth floor was empty. Then, the lights in the hallway began to dim and brighten, almost like they were pulsing. Then, the door to room 412 didn't just open, it was pulled open with such force that it hit the interior wall with a loud bang that I could actually hear through the security audio. And then, something stepped out. It didn't walk. It drifted. It was that same dark, elongated shape from the reflection, but now it was fully visible. It was a void of light, a human-shaped hole in the world. It moved down the hallway toward the elevator, and as it passed under the flickering lights, the video feed began to distort heavily. The screen turned into a mess of static and jagged lines, as if the very presence of the thing was interfering with the electronic signal. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move, I couldn't breathe. I watched this impossible thing move toward the elevator, enter it, and then the footage just died. The camera for the fourth floor went completely black. I checked the other cameras. The lobby was fine. The parking lot was fine. The first and second floors were fine. Only the fourth floor was dead. I called the hotel manager the next morning, my voice shaking so hard I could barely speak. I told him we had a massive electrical issue on the fourth floor and that the cameras were fried. I didn't tell him about the shape. I couldn't. How do you tell your boss that a shadow man walked out of a vacant room? The maintenance crew came in that day. They checked the wiring, the sensors, and the cameras. They found nothing. They told me the cameras were perfectly fine and that the outage must have been a momentary power surge that didn't affect anything else in the building. They even replaced the camera in the fourth floor hallway just to be safe. When they were done, I went back to the office and pulled the logs. I wanted to see the exact timestamp of the failure. I found it. But when I tried to play the video from the new camera, which had been installed just hours before, there was a gap. A perfect, clean gap in the recording from 3:15 a.m. to 3:20 a.m. It wasn't a glitch. It was as if the time itself had been erased from the digital record. I quit 2 weeks later. I couldn't do it anymore. Every time I sat in that lobby, I felt like I was waiting for the clock to hit 3:15. I felt like I was waiting for the darkness to come back for me. I still have the original footage on an old hard drive I took with me when I left. I've watched it 1,000 times, trying to find a logical explanation. Is it a ghost? Is it some kind of spatial anomaly? Is it something else entirely? I don't know. All I know is that some things in this world aren't meant to be captured on camera, and some doors are better left closed. If you've ever experienced something you couldn't explain, I want to hear about it. What do you think? Comment below. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to follow for more.